Hey, it's Jeremy from jeremy.net. So, I am taking some drawings from this month's figure drawing sessions, and I'm taking some that did not come out particularly well or have some mistakes in them, and I'm going back over the drawings and analyzing them, redrawing them, trying to figure out the places where I went wrong, things where there are gaps in my drawing or anatomical knowledge, trying to fill those gaps and become a better artist. I really feel like this is one of the most important practices that a lot of artists don't do. It's actually taking the time to really go back and look at what's wrong with their work in order to move forward. Now, in this particular drawing, I don't feel like the pose itself was that bad, or even the anatomy in the larger drawing on the left. The big problem is my application of the white here using Conte crayon and a little bit of a white General's charcoal pencil. And my figure drawing instructor has called me out on many occasions for having a very patchy application of white, where it's just bits of white that pop out on the page, as opposed to a broad area that gives you a sense of this is the plane or the side of a form that's, or the side of a figure that is facing towards the light or facing away from the light. So I intentionally went in, my biggest concern in the little drawing I'm doing here on the left is trying to really get the sense that the front right side of the torso, it's front lit from the right, and making sure that it really conveys a sense that that's where the light is coming from. And overall, I feel like this drawing has more anatomical detail in it than the original, and a lot of that could just be the fact that I had more time, I had as much time as I wanted in doing this small study, whereas the drawing that was in class was probably maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And I mean, you can always blame not having enough time in a figure drawing class, having enough time with the pose, as a reason for not getting everything down that you want to. But if you get down the essentials and the basic structure and it's correct, what you'll have is a drawing that isn't a bad drawing. It'll just feel unfinished. And that's the difference, is that the first one, there were mistakes in it. It wasn't just that it wasn't finished. Now on this next pose, I'm redrawing the drawing that you can see on the left, the far left one that's underneath my hand. That pose, the model is a tall, thin woman, but I went way too far and was really exaggerated. And this is one of those cases where I just got too caught up in the gesture and didn't focus correctly on the actual proportion and getting the structure down. So it just felt, not that it was horrible, but it was just a wonky drawing. It didn't have a sense of actual anatomy. It felt a lot more cartoony. So the first one I went and did one drawing where I was working on fixing the proportions. But the second drawing I'm doing here of just her torso, she really did have an interesting bend, almost like her body felt like the bow from a bow and arrow being drawn. And I'm pretty sure, was hanging from something above, which is what allowed her torso to, her hips to hang back and make that nice curve. So I wanted to go back and try and capture that interesting twist and that hanging position in the torso. It was a really unique feel in the body. Whenever you see those things, it's interesting to study. Now, this seated figure here that I'm redrawing, I can already see that in the fix, I made even more mistakes. The thing that led me to redraw this was the fact that in the drawing on the left, the one from class, her breasts feel like they weren't properly positioned on the rib cage. So I went and I redrew, and I definitely got a better sense of the structure of her torso, her pelvis, her abs, and it really feels like the torso itself is more soundly structured. But the mistake I made is that now her breasts are laying flat against her body, and in looking at this sketch, I didn't even realize this when I was doing the fix. I'm only realizing this now as I'm looking back at it for the drawing video, that the reason why her breast seems like it was kind of floating off in a weird way in the original drawing is because her arm moving forward, her on our left, that arm was pulling the breast forward off of the torso a little bit, and I didn't properly convey the sense of it both being in the proper position attached to the rib cage, but still being pulled forward by the movement of the arm. So this is one of those cases where I sort of fixed one problem but kind of made another. Overall, I am happy with how that little sketch looks. But the other thing I noticed is that you can see now I'm redrawing the knees, and I've always had problems with knees. I continue to still have, a bit of problems with it. So, when you're trying to draw something and you can't get the answers, you go and you pull out some reference. In this case, I pulled out Anatomy Lessons from the Great Masters by Robert Beverly Hale, and then after this, I pulled out Anatomy for the Artist by Sarah Simblet. These are two both, frequent go-to books. They're on my bookshelf right by my drawing table. Whenever I need some reference to look at for anatomy, for drawing structure, I'll pull out these books. And for me, it was sitting down and really trying to convey the sense of volume of a bent knee, the way that the muscles of both the calves and the upper part of the lower leg and the end of the thighs just before the knee, the way that those muscles compress around the joint when it's bent. It's one of those things where it's a subtle sense of form, doing it in a foreshortened angle, getting that sense of overlap and musculature. It's something that I want to continue to restudy and continue to revisit because I always have trouble with those poses. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy these videos, please like and share them. Visit my resources page for free creativity tools and comic books at resources.jeremy.net. That's resources.gerimi.net. Also, visit my main website, jeremy.net, where you can buy my comic books, art prints, and more. There's also links to my Instagram, Twitter, and other social media accounts. That's it for now. Go be creative.